Kia ora, everyone, and welcome to our session today. First of all, we're going to have a little karakia, which is the way that we start any little meeting, and I'm going to hand that over to Kelly. Kia ora.
Apai. Tūtaua mai I ruka, tūtaua mai I raro, tūtaua mai I roto, tūtaua mai I waho, tūtaua mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa. Hui e, tai ki e.
Kia ora, Cal. So welcome everybody to our Indigenous Perspectives and Practices session this evening. And I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, the Nightingale Initiative for Global Health, the planetary health crew that has brought all us together in the Western Pacific and throughout us internationally. Thank you very much, and that we stand here before you honoured to be able to participate in this online session with you. And I think what's really exciting is that this is the first time we have all these nurses globally all in one space across the country. So welcome all. Welcome to all our guests who are here, and we look forward to your comments. We will have a 15-minute opportunity for you to share questions, and then we'll close in an hour's time. So thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Barbara Dossi and Dr. Diva Marie Beck. Thank you very much. My friends from the nurse coaching arena in New York, I really thank you for the opportunity that we can share on this platform at this time now as the world is kind of a bit upside down. And so our opportunity here is to be able to show and share some stories from an Indigenous Māori perspective from Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud, New Zealand. And we start this by introducing ourselves and who we are, because that is the most important element of anything that we do, is who we are and where do we belong to. Ko tainui te waka, ko Ngāti Maniapoto, ko Ngāti Apakura, ko Ngāti Wairere, o ko iwi. Ko Kakipuku te maunga, ko Waipa te awa, ko te kopua te marae. Ko Emery te whānau no Aotearoa ahau, ko Anna Aikman tako ingoa, he wahine Māori, excuse me. So what I'm saying here is I am saying who I am and stating all my lineages and my connections around our family lines and through our ancestors. So in English, that translates into, I acknowledge my tribal lineage to the Tainui canoe, to Ngāti Maniapoto, Ngāti Apakura, Ngāti Wairere peoples. My mountain is Kakepuku and my river is Waipa. My ancestral home is Te Kopua. The land of the long white cloud, New Zealand, is my home. My name is Anna Aikman and I am Wahine Māori, Māori woman. So welcome everyone. And I'm going to pass over before too much further ado, I'm going to pass over to Dr. Kelly Waiana Tikau and Railing Deju to introduce themselves in a way that is similar. Kia ora. Kia ora, Kelly.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, kia koe te kai arahi o tēnei kōrero I te pō, but pia kia koutou I te ata, I Wainganui te pō pia. For some of you it may be in the middle of the night, some of you it may be the day, but for us it's in the evening here in Aotearoa, and it's around just about coming up to 9 o'clock. Nō reira, ko waio, ko Kelly Waiana Tikau tōku ingoa. My name is Kelly. Waiana is my middle name and Tikau is my surname. I whakapapa ki te waipounamu o Aotearoa ki o tautahi. Nō reira, auraki matatū titia, kai titia manoa. Nō reira, etahi o ku iwi waitaha, ka te mamo e kaitahu, me etahi atu o ku hapu, ko kaitarewa, ka te irakehu, and nō reira, nō te whānau whānui o Tikau, Hokianga, Bunker, tai nui, etahi atu ingoa. So I'm from many whānau, but particularly from the Tikal whānau, and we are situated in the beautiful Banks Peninsula. But most Māori will say that the pito o te ao, the centre of the ao, is where they come from. And so for me, it's around the Horomaka. But I will be explaining a little bit more about that when we get to my part in this kōrero. So I just want to acknowledge Anna and acknowledge everybody else tonight. And particularly now, I'm going to throw the rākau over to you, Raylene, to introduce yourself and offer your pepeha. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Oh, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So I greet you once, I greet you twice, I greet you thrice. Muri whenuku uta, muri whenuku tai, ko tēnei te reo karanga o te motu, tui, 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 a ti hei mauri ora. Ko maunga pi ko te maunga, ko pārenga ringa te moana, ko te reo mihi te marae, ko Ngāti Kuri te iwi no te hapua. Ki te taha o te tupuna whae, ko whangatawa ti te maunga, ko kārere kura te moana, ko roma te marae, ko te rarawa te iwi no ahipara. Ko no muri whenua e whakatawhi aki ahau ki te waipounamu. Oh, kia ora everybody. So for those that don't speak a beautiful native language of Māori, what I'm telling you is my ancestors come from the very tip of the North Island in a little place called Te Hapua, and then I come down the bottom of the 90-mile beach to a little place called Ahipara. However, I then said that while I come from the far north, that's my ancestral lands, that's where my ancestors walked, where they thrived. I was born in the bottom of the south into Waipounamu. And so that is my pepeha to you. And now I acknowledge everybody for the wonderful work that's gone on, putting all this together. I'm looking forward to sharing an Indigenous approach to planetary health.
Kia ora, Raylene. So you'll hear us say kia ora a few times. It's two words, K-I-A on the first one and ora and the second one, ora. And when we translate into English, often it doesn't give the beauty of the words that we use. So kia ora generally could be saying hello, and a lot of people around the world know that phrase. However, it's got a deeper meaning about the importance of health and who we are, and the importance of ora health. So today we're looking at planetary health, and we would like to share with you some of the kaupapa. Some of the purpose of this session today was around programs, projects, education, planning, and adaptation that Indigenous people may use in their own landscapes to help and adapt towards planetary ill health, however that is defined. Before I go any further, I would like to acknowledge all the Indigenous people around the world globally. We come from, as an Indigenous Māori, so we belong to the land of Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud. However, we would like to acknowledge everyone else who comes from an Indigenous background, because we all have stories, and I am fairly sure that all of us talk about the interconnectedness of health and well-being with everything that we see and know, animate and inanimate. So welcome to our session this evening, and we look forward to sharing some of our stories. So I'm going to start with Kelly. So Kelly is a senior lecturer at the University of Otago, Christchurch campus, Aotearoa. So that's in the South Island of New Zealand. And I've known Cal for a long time, and she's a very gifted wahine woman, from arts to nursing, and has just recently completed her Fulbright scholarship in Hawaii. So welcome, Kelly, and we look forward to your kōrero.
Kia ora, Anna. Yes, thank you. I didn't expect you to give me a little bit of a blurb, but thank you so much for doing that. And so some of the areas I'm working in is that I'm looking at Māori health. So I teach Māori health and Indigenous health into Masters of Nursing students, as well as I have my annual practicing certificate. So I would love to find time to go back into the wards and the communities. At this current time, I'm teaching more about that, and particularly Māori health models, and Māori inequities in health, and some of the solutions coming forward. And tonight's about some of the solutions. So to give you a sense of my whakapapa or my lineage or where I'm talking about, I'm going to go wide and then come back in. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you, for those people going, where are they based? And some of you, I'm sorry if this is, you are from Aotearoa, no mai taute mai, but this is, I'm just for those who are joining us on an international basis. So I'm just going to go into my screen and whip in and out of these screens so you can see. So that's us, Aotearoa. And in the next slide, this is, we're made up of 2 islands. Well, we've made up of a few islands, but the biggest islands are our North Island and our South. And I'm talking in particular about Te Waiponamu, that's the South Island. And on the picture on the right-hand side, we'll show you our how Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu, that's our governing over body, well, how it's broken up into 18 tribal councils. And those dots represent all those tribal councils. We call them runanga. And on each of those, they have marae, which are like our meeting houses, and in that gathers the members around that area that whakapapa or affiliate to that runanga, to that marae. And so how it's made up is you've got this, the Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu, the office of Ngāi Tahu, that's our iwi, and it's broken down into these areas, and this is how the overarching body works. But when we come to the next slide, and this is just a really quick overview for one particular iwi or one particular tribe that's based in the South Island, how it sort of is, how it looks, how it works. Because where we're going to come down to is we're going to come back to that picture. And if you look at on that picture, you'll see Te Runanga or Tuahuriri, Te Runanga on the right-hand side, coming down, and you'll see Te Hapu o Ngāti Wheke, Te Runanga o Kaukaurarata, and we keep going round. All of that is all the hapu or the sub-tribe area where I belong. And so when I'm talking tonight, I often talk about that. And these are the pictures of my 2 marae in particular that I'm going to be sort of referencing throughout my very short kōrero to you all. So I think that's where I'm going to come back out of now. Oh, I was going to mention this. Let's see if I can go down here. So what's really important when we talk about planetary health, for me, my planet is those marae, is my runanga, is my tribal councils. That is my planet. And if I can contribute with my nursing health and background alongside my people, then that is contributing to the wider planet health. So we look at health of our waterways, health of our whenua, the land, health of our environment, the bush, the plants, everything that's on that land, health of our marae, which is those pictures you saw before of the meeting houses, health of our whakapapa, our lineage, health of our customary practices, and that is tikanga and kawa, and also it comes down to health of our whānau. So how we do that is by being aware of the state of our whenua is, the state of our land, the state of our waterways, and we really kind of start to explore that. And we explore that with the ancestral knowledge and guidance. We also explore that with technology and with research and with collaborations with other research bodies and universities that are doing research using technology that we don't even know about or couldn't even invest in. So we do a lot of collaboration about becoming aware of the state of our own space. And we've found out so much about what's happening to the bottom of our ocean, around our marae, around our meeting houses, around our area of where we whakapapa to or align to, that we wouldn't have known perhaps without having this technology. So it is about using the ancestral guidance, ancestral knowledge, combined with modern technology and collaborating with other groups that can assist us to get to see things we've not been able to see before. But that's also, not putting aside the knowledge that we have from our ancestors and through our practices to understand what perhaps we can't see on a tangible level. So, using a lot of that spiritual guidance, gathering natural and non-natural resources. It also means insurance. We need insurance on our marae, and they cost a lot. Fighting local and national governance boards to look after us, to assist us, to improve the drainage around our areas, and collaborating and being dynamic, which I think it sits with many Indigenous collectives is I've mentioned the collaborating, but also being really dynamic the way that we do things. Because often if we're not been attended to initially, and this is what's happened with large scale environmental crises, is that we've been left on our own for a bit, and we've been dynamic to get up and activate to look after our people, by getting them to come to the marae, by making sure that they're okay, by providing food, by providing emergency supplies, being constantly assertive, because if we don't, we're not included in the conversations about planetary health or being prepared. And I'm just skipping through things. I'm actually going to stop sharing now and come into this a bit more so you can see, come back to me really, because it's a lot of sharing that screen. But what I wanted to talk about how, so that's getting an overview on awareness of our space, awareness of what we have and what we need to protect. And some of the things what we're doing at the moment is that we have been looking at how we responded to COVID. And COVID that hit our marae meant that it really altered a lot of our tikanga, and that's our customary practices that we use in ceremonial practices, because A, we couldn't come onto the marae, B, we couldn't bring our dead to our marae, or if we did, it had to be under a very restrained kind of process. We couldn't do things that normally make us feel like we've welcomed people on and we've connected with them. And that's such as hareru, or sharing breath, which is one of our practices. So we had to adapt, and through this adaptation and through this reaching out and finding new ways of managing COVID on the marae, but also managing it in our community, is we found out a lot about ourselves and what we could do. And it gave us the confidence to know that we can handle these adverse environmental issues well. And so even though it was frustrating initially when we weren't given the tools that we needed from the government to get on with vaccinating people and get on with giving out these resources to our communities, what we managed to do is it gave us we realized that we had the competence and the confidence to actually manage these large scale events. And so research has been done around how well we responded at this time. And that really talked about that importance of relationship and finding other ways to communicate and just getting on and not waiting, because the problem is when we waited, people became unwell, people became lost and confused. And so now we know we've applied what we've learned through responding and the COVID response into up and coming and the things that we're having now with other infectious diseases that are coming through. Like we've had a recent bout of measles, influenza is huge still, and so we're applying some of those techniques that we learnt during the COVID response at our marae during our ceremonies, which means that people will be wearing masks in our ceremonies. People will decide not to share breath. They will be doing things more like an elbow to an elbow, an acknowledgement to of the similar thing. And so we're doing those sort of things to use the knowledge we learned through COVID, be brave about certain ways that to hold on to our practices, our customary practices, because they are often been informed by previous historical pandemics and other diseases that have come through, and know that we know how to manage these and learning as we go. So that's a little bit there. Anna, I want to sort of keep moving on with you and with Raylene. So COVID gave us the confidence to know that we can manage other things coming forward with knowledge, with awareness of how it's impacting on our whenua, how it's impacting on our marae, how it's impacting on our community. But to also know that within our marae and within our hapu, that's our sub-tribe, we have very knowledgeable people that are educated both in Indigenous studies as well as Western knowledge, to be able to bring this all together and create packages and to also know what we need in those events.
Kia ora, Cal. I think got that. I'm just listening. Thank you very much for your beautiful presentation and photographs. I always wonder about, what is marae and what does it mean to us? And although you've shown us the big picture of what it looks like, what does it mean to you?
A marae means to me a vessel or a repository of knowledge, and it is our living library. So everything within the marae is a pa, is a village, but on the marae is the meeting house or the wharenui, and in that meeting house it's a body of an ancestor. And within that ancestor is the knowledge you need to know to be safe and to be well, and because it's about identity. And so once we learn our reo and learn about ourselves, we can start to read the walls, the art on the walls. Everything means something. And there's a lot of messages that look after us, that tell us how to look after ourselves in any event and in any ceremony. So the challenge, I suppose, is understanding what's been said on those walls and why those ancestors have been placed before us. They are us. So for me, the marae is a philosophy of health, and it's a living philosophy of health, and it's a really important place to be in terms of connection. So yeah, that's. I'll leave it there.
Well, Kelly, thank you very much. I was interested when you spoke about the importance of how you situate us in marae and what that means for all of us as Māori in Aotearoa, and the importance of ancestral knowledge and defining that space. And I think with the question that I asked you, that you've just answered, how important ancestors are. So we're very, very closely connected to our ancestors in all times, but particularly in our home marae. So kia ora, Cal, thank you very much for sharing. We'll have an opportunity to have questions a little bit later on, 15 minutes. A 15-minute session. So kia ora, Kelly, thank you very much for sharing your story. So kia ora, Raylene. Very
Kia
nice
ora.
to see you here. So I'm introducing Raylene de Joux, and Raylene and I have been working together lately in the nursing lecturing space, and we've been able to have a beautiful relationship. And although we knew each other prior, I think that our teaching relationship for our student nurses, we're teaching second years at the moment, second year students in Māori and in Māori health papers, and what that means for them on engagement with our whānau, our families. So it's always really lovely to see you, Raylene. Thank you very much for coming on this panel and I'm enjoying our conversations to date, as I do with you, Cal, always. So kia ora, welcome to the space, and take it away. I just want to mention a couple of things. Raylene, is the tutor the tutor for the Department of Māori Studies in Ara Institute of Canterbury, and also has done a lot of work over time to really shapeshift what's cervical screening and sudden infant death syndrome for Māori. So kia ora, Raylene, welcome.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you, Anna, for that beautiful introduction. And thank you, Kelly. It's always wonderful listening to your kōrero, your discussions around different topics. So I am coming back in. So previously I introduced myself. And so now I've put up, you can see I talked of my two home marae, and they both come from the tip of the north. The top one, the Te Hiku or Te Ika marae, is right at the very northern Cape. And for Māori, the Northern Cape is where our spirits depart the world. So it's in a little place called Spirits Bay or Kapawairua, around that area. And my other home marae is the bottom of the 90 Mile Beach. I'll show you on a map shortly. And so once again, it has significance. And the person that's in the center of my universe is my nanny, my grandmother, who was lived to a grand age and who spent her life ensuring that principles and tikanga, I'll explain tikanga later, tikanga Māori and kaitiakitanga guardianship was upheld throughout all our places and our lands. And so I want to just share that for a start. And if I go on to the next slide, which I do like that, I also wanted to say, while I said I come from the tip of the north, and you can see in the map of New Zealand, that very tip of the north is a tiny little bit up there, which is our ancestral land. If you've been to Aotearoa, New Zealand, you will know there's a big lighthouse there. However, for us, it's a sacred place. There's a pahutakawa tree there where your spirits leave New Zealand as they travel back to their spiritual homeland. So because you'd heard Kelly talk of her home marae, because I come from the tip of the north, however, I was born in the bottom of the South Island, right down the bottom, close to that little purple island down there. And so being born down there, living so far from my tribal ancestry, and my father was a product of colonization, where they took all the children from the north and took them away. So I returned him home when he was 65 and traced my grandmother when she was 85. So while I lived in Waiponamu, I was nurtured by the Ngāi Tahu iwi. But however, we set up our own pan-tribal marae. So we had places to take our loved ones and to uphold our cultural practices. I wonder if we think about Māori environmental health, I wanted you to think about health, environmental health is a lived and breathed right throughout. I'm going to share, sorry, I'll go back and share these concepts because I'll talk about them. And so one of the ones I'm going to think about is the kaitiaki, where we see ourselves as guardian, and we have stewardship and protection of the environment and our resources. And it's obviously deeply rooted in reciprocity and intergenerational. So it's been passed down through the generations where we take it seriously. We know it was practiced. So when we're challenged that Māori didn't practice these things, we know it's written in all our songs. It's written in all our tribal history. It's written in all our pūrākau, which is our stories and narratives about our lives. And we know that that was very much part of it. Māori have always seen themselves, rather than own the land, we are kaitiakis or guardians of the land. So part of that guardianship is protecting that land. So that is practices that are around environmental health, are around, so we think about our Indigenous knowledge and our science versus scientific knowledge. However, Māori had all the writings and the things that are carved into our meeting houses tell all those stories of how we upheld things, how we protected things, and how we had those guardianships. We had our guardianships around each one. We had deities, or what we might call gods, that looked after all the different domains, like looking after the moana, the sea, the awa, the rivers, the salt waters, the other waters, the forests, the airways. So we've got all those things around that. And I think we, in talking of iwi subject to, we've been subjected to a lot of environmental disruptions. So when you see that map of New Zealand, if you think of where I came from, where we were reliant on fishing and the forest and the bush to live and survive. And so when you think the environmental things that disrupt all those patterns and behaviors of the species of fish that lived in the oceans, our tribe comes right out from the Kermadec. So we've come through from the Kermadecs, coming through to the top of the north, which we call Moody Whenua. So as part of that, how do we know that all these species existed? So now we know that the species of fish and seafood that existed that no longer is seen. As part of when we were doing our tribal land settlements, we had to prove how we know that we belong to this piece of land. And when you've got that little strip of land, how do you do that? So we used that, we worked on our navigational skills, we reading the stars and the signs and taking them out to places where we did all our traditional fishing grounds, or what we call our mahinga kai, our traditional places of gathering food. And we took them out to places, and the kaumātua, our elders, talked of fish and species and fauna and flora that no longer exist. However, and we know that because of the environmental change, that's impacted on it. So we also, you see on my slide, I've talked about how tikanga is how we use ethical guidelines and customary practices to ensure that things are well protected. And so sometimes in our history, a lot of those things have been disrupted. So we've lost those things, and the understanding of the spiritual significance of the land, the waterways, the seabed and shorelines, and the airspace. And so that's some of the challenges, is how can we claim that we owned airspace, or how can we claim that we own seabed and shorelines, and how can we tell our stories of the times of abundance and times of when nothing was polluted and everything thrived. So we base ourselves around these two things I've got down there called tapu and noa. So they're foundational Māori concepts that regulate, regulating, and it implies we put things under sacredness. If we see some part of our food sources are getting depleted, we put them under a state of tapu. So that's our way of managing that. We work and we allow that time to replenish. Once it's abundant, then we can lift the tapu, or the sacredness or restriction, and bring it back to a state of noa where there's abundance of that species of fish, or abundance of that source of food in the forests again, so we can start doing that. So we work very much under these laws of tapu and noa. If we think about the laws of tapu and noa, it was recognised by one of our major inspirational kaumātua, or our elders, Dr. Mason Jury. And so he's seen tapu and noa as the first public health system, how Māori manage their health systems. I wanted to talk about how some of those things in terms of health and well-being, the practices that we had that upheld and supported us. Māori lived as a collective, so our marae was our base. We lived as a collective, so collectively we took responsibility for everybody. And so we had I want to talk about what we call rongoa Māori. So rongoa Māori is traditional practice, traditional healing, and using a traditional parts of, using the bush and their leaves and their different parts, I'm losing the plot there, medicinal plants and herbs for healing properties. So as part of it, those traditional practices were outlawed as part of our colonisation process. So part of our really strong way of reinforcing that or reinstating that was our advocacy to reinstate rongoa Māori as within the Western health system. And it was also about the restoration of our ngahere, our bush, and because within the bush and within the sea, we see what we call the mauri, the life force. So when our bushes and our sea waters and things are unwell or polluted, we see that the mauri, the life force of those ancestral places has been suppressed, and so we need to do something to get that ecosystem balance again so that we can ensure that we've got access to healthy medicinal plants and herbs. And it's about our traditional gathering grounds. We want to reclaim them. We want that process of preservation and restoration of all those grounds as well. So we've done a lot of work in terms of Māori work from a holistic framework. So our iwi based, so you've seen our tribal system. So we have iwi based. So we brought our house systems back to an iwi based, so that we have house systems that are by Māori for Māori. So we believe that we have the skills, we have the knowledge, we have the people that can manage our house system. So by bringing it back to a holistic framework, bringing it back to places where Māori are able to easily access health services and the services of provision and mainstream, we wanted to ensure that we are able to get that equity of health service. So it's by Māori for Māori services, and working within bicultural practices, because in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we are pretty unique. We have the Tiriti of Waitangi. We had with our colonisation process. So we have a partnership between the British Crown and with the Māori of Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Indigenous people. So we have that wonderful opportunity to work in partnership and use a bicultural models to ensure that the health of all our people is sustained and that they all have access to a provision of services that meets their needs. You heard Anna talk to me. It was about how we found Māori solutions to Māori problems, what we're seen as Māori problems. So when we talk about cervical screening, when Māori were very high in the statistics of cervical screening, how do we take an Indigenous approach to a clinical practice so Māori will access the services? So one of the things was actually doing a pilot program around a kaupapa Māori project where we trained. I was part of that early times where we trained a lot of, while I come from a nursing background, we trained what we call lay smear takers, so that we took the screening services to places where Māori women would trust that we would look after them, because for Māori women, the te whare tangata, or the womb, is a very sacred part. It's a house of mankind. It's an indication that they are able to birth and be part of the future generation. So to go to those sacred places, we come up with a Māori model of health which upheld the integrity and the mana of our woman, and we were able to get a service which was that women were easily able to access that suited their needs. And we worked in partnership with mainstream to develop models that would work in a mainstream system as well. So that was about that partnership where they were able to make referrals to our models of health, our screening service, and vice versa. The Māori SIDS program was where we had those high incidents of death of our Māori babies. So all the research, so it was very research based. And so all the research told us particular things. And so when we started doing the research, and we did a qualitative research, so it was interviewing people. We found all the unresolved grief of women that had lost babies, and in the time where babies were taken and they never seen them, the baby died, they never got the opportunity to grieve. So there's all the unresolved grief. And so we worked on that unresolved grief process, which built these strong women that then become the role models, the mentors to take the messages around the country. So their ability to take the messages around the country, and we know that with the things we knew by taking those models around the country that we were able to reach women and support them. We knew the big issue was around the smoking and pregnancy. So it was once again about reclaiming and revitalizing our own Indigenous health practices in terms of coming back to ukaipō or breastfeeding, so bringing back some of those traditional practices, getting ourselves in a position where we could support women to make some good choices that ensured that the safety of their babies and the safety of their whānau was well looked after. I'm going to end at that and take it back to you, Anna, because we know that our time is disappearing really fast, and we want to just see what you've got to bring into this, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Kia ora, Raylene. Beautiful, as always, as well. I did see there's a few questions coming up now, and thank you very much for the comments. One of the early questions was from Teddy, and I think both for you, Raylene, and Cal, it would be interesting to see your response, and I think, Cal, you might have already typed something in. But I think it's a really good thing I think it's a really good concept for everyone to understand where we come from in that ancestral space. So for Māori, the question was around, we talk about ancestors, but do we actually look at what our future generations are? So ancestors are part of who we are, no matter what we do. And we can go generations back, and we can go back to the cosmology stories, back to the beginning of time. And we have this interlinking throughout. And so that means our future generations are as well. We're all part of the one. So, Cal, would you like to respond to that question? Thank you.
Kia ora. Well, I think I did. I wrote a little bit of a spiel, but I can't personally look into the future and see and know who's coming after me, but which I love about that actually. But what I can do, and there are some people, and as I mentioned to Tere, that there are some people that we call matakete that do have the ability to see beyond what is this realm. And so, we acknowledge that there's always within our Indigenous cultures those that have the ability to see. But for myself, what we work on at our marae, under my sub-tribe and tribe, is that we work on protecting and making the space that they are coming into better than it was before in terms of, and that's not to say that our ancestors didn't, but there'll be some things that have been our land, reclaiming our land, making sure that we're on to our harvesting, learning, preparing, going through, like for instance, my own family land. We've had to fight for it off to get it back, to be able to hand it to those future generations coming ahead of me and us. So a lot of the work we do now is not about just us. It's more so, I would say, about those coming ahead of us. So, and that gives you a sense of responsibility and a target to reach for, that my children, my mokopuna, my grandchildren will be coming into there will still be challenges for them, but hopefully they're not fighting the same challenges that we have. Maybe another iteration of it down the track, but we're trying to prepare their journey ahead of them. So that's as much as I can answer that right now.
Kia ora, Cal, Raylene.
Now, just repeat the question. I'm trying to find it in the chat.
The question was around, we acknowledge ancestors, but do we, I think it was equally acknowledge our future generations?
Yes. Thank you. That's because we have women are seen as the potential of all the future generations. So while we honor and respect and walk in the footsteps of our ancestors, and we believe that they're all walking behind us, and that's why I acknowledge the harakeke, or the flax weaving that's behind us, because that's from that was weaved by Anna's mother. So we always say we've got her behind us, she's got our backs. However, we always, the potential of woman, that's why women were so treasured, because it's the potential of the future generations. If we don't look after our women, then we're losing those future generations, and we see those future generations, and like Kelly said, that mataketi, or that purpose to see forward, is sometimes some of our elders will make comments, and I'm going to share an example here. At the time I was pregnant with my third child, and I was in a setting with all the elders around me, and this one particular woman came that I didn't know, came up to me, and she said, "Do you mind if I put your hand on your tummy?" And she put her hand on my tummy, and she's, "Oh my goodness, twin boys." And I looked and I thought, what? And I just went home and I said, oh, there was something strange happened to me. And I didn't know I was pregnant with twins, but I very soon, 6 months later, had twin boys. So it's that what they pick up. And all our what we call whakatokis, we have all these proverbs that talk about, like one is ata whaitia ngā wahine Māori, ko rātou te pautoko manawa o te whānau hapu me te iwi. So that is, we must nurture Māori women, because they are the carriers of the future generations, which means the survival of our whānau, our families, our hapu, our sub-tribes, and our iwi, our tribes. So if we don't look after a woman, then we don't have the potential to keep producing and building on our tribes. And as part of that, we acknowledge our males, because without our males, we cannot procreate. So we also acknowledge the importance. And so that's why when you go to anything ceremonial Māori, the woman will go in front, the men will flank around them, and I always say to the men, well, yeah, they're always there to protect us. And when we're in a marae setting where we're looking, and we always have people, the men are always in the front to protect the woman, and the woman are always inside to push the men and make sure they do things right, as happens. So it's that interdependence of the male and the female, but also the belief that our future generations. So for Māori women, and I have 8 grandchildren, so for Māori women, the importance of having those future generations and seeing our children flourish. And in order for our children to flourish, they must have all the resources that our ancestors have. They must have unpolluted waterways. We see in research what happens when things impact on the health of and well-being. And you just start reading things and thinks, I had read something about how it genetically can impact on the different cells on the body and even the semen. So we're talking about things that if we don't stop this pollution, if we don't look after our environment, we are not going to be having those future generations that we all aspire to have.
Kia ora, Raylene, well said. And we are all interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. So the way we shape our lives, the way we make connections, and the way we look after our elders, as well as those coming on board, our grandchildren to be, is really important if we want to have thriving futures for Māori. So thank you, Raylene. Thank you, Cal. So we're almost going to go into our question time, but I just wanted to weave a couple of stories in here. So Raylene acknowledged the harakeke, so the flax kite. It's a little kind of little bag behind her, and we were trying to find an image for what would look, what could we have behind our screens, and so we looked at a lot of images, and then I went and grabbed my mum's kitty that sits at the front door in my home, and decided when we took a photo of that, Raylene took a photo of it, and here we are. So my mum's harakeke flax creation sits behind us. And that's the memory that we have for our ancestors, because we cannot go forward without the acknowledgement of our ancestors. And our roles are, and the way that I see it is, our roles are that we have an opportunity to learn from our elders and then to contribute that forward so that we can make a difference in our worlds. One of the things I just want to talk about briefly about where I probably sit in this space, it would be in the spiritual area. And so for me, spirit is as much part of who we are and our health, planetary health, and our personal health. And I've just been doing some research lately on, I'm looking at models of health for a spirit, or what we call wairua approach to building relationships with Māori. And so we know that we have different worldviews, and it's really important for us to understand other people's worldviews. And as nurses, that first impression, that first interaction with Māori is absolutely important. And in these spaces, we need to be calm, authentic. We need to be able to show up well, and it's not about that we have to know everything. It's moving forward with grace and humility, and to be able to find a space of commonality, to ask questions and to have an understanding of the person Māori and what is important to them in front of them. And I was teaching some students with Raylene just recently, and we looked at the subject of wairua, of spirit. And it was really interesting because this was the one area of nursing and building those relationships for Māori that was a challenge for our students. And it is acknowledging someone's spirituality, what that might mean for them, not what we think it should be for them, but what it means for them and how we can support that. And I think what was really exciting, I think, if I just pull these stats out, all those who did their assignments, I think there were 99% actually had their focus on wairua, and that's amazing. And so if we work in a spirit-first approach to Indigenous populations, Māori in particular, because we can only speak from a Māori perspective, that we can make a difference in that space to acknowledge Māori and be able to relate in an area where we have a common respect and reciprocity happening. So I'm really interested in trauma-informed care, how we can lead through Indigenous frameworks globally. And I speak from a Māori perspective, how we can approach a spirit-first approach to nursing education and what that might look like for global health. And so that's where I sit in there. And so Spirit sits with everything and overarches everything that we do, as it is about building relationships are so very, very important. We must build the relations first, gather trust. And when we start to build those relationships, we can make a huge difference in an upside down world that we are in. So it's about getting to know each other, and we love getting to know each other, and we love getting to know you. Thank you for being with us. So we're going to open up to question time. Kia ora.
I see we've only got a few minutes left. So I seen Diva had a question there, and now where's it gone? Diva,
Māori perspectives for nurses and midwives. Kia ora, Diva.
I can't find the question now.
How are we bringing Māori perspectives to nurses and midwives themselves?
Yeah. So we're lucky in Aotearoa, New Zealand. because we have it written in legislation that and we work in a treaty-based bicultural practice, which means we are integrating cultural concepts and kaupapa Māori learnings throughout the nursing curriculum. So just for a short question around that, we have gone back to in every way we do it. So that's what Anna and I do. That's part of our role, is to do the Indigenous papers so that they get an understanding of Māori culture. Because when you look at birthing, especially with midwives, the Māori birthing rate is going up. And the Māori Pacific Island and Asian birth rates are now probably almost getting to the stage that they're over 50%, and the non-Māori, or what we call the non-Māori we'll talk about, is they're below that 49%. So we know that the Māori birthing rate, it's going to be more important that we have those things in place. And we always say, if you get it right for Māori, you get it right for everybody, because at the end of the day, we all have the same beliefs. However, it's easier if we can implement the cultural strategies right from the start.
Kia ora, Raylene. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Cal, is there anything you want to just say before I close off and we have our karakia?
Yeah, I'll just add to that a lot of it for me is around running workshops. So I work in the area of reclamation of Indigenous, Māori birthing practices and knowledge, but also in other areas of Māori health as well. And for me, it's about getting back into our communities. So I teach it in a university level, but I also teach it back in the community. So running free, accessible workshops, running our own Māori version of professional development, running in areas that we know that they're not being taught in their training. So making them free, making them what they're interested in doing, building up their competencies in this area, because the whānau or the families are asking for more ancestral driven knowledge practices. And so we've got this gap where we're not getting the trainings, it's not happening in the training as much as it could be yet. We're working on that by putting more Māori into these places as teachers and trainers, but also looking at how important the community is to teach itself. So we can do a lot of that in our own spaces, and that's what we're doing. And it's filtering back out as another skill that they can put in their kete of knowledge. So yes, we are working both at nursing and midwifery to train within the training, to change the way that they are taught, but also to teach it in our workshops out in the community.
Kia ora, Cal. So in closing, Cal's going to share a karakia in a minute, but I just want to say, we are all part of planetary health. And as nurses, we have an amazing opportunity to really shift things in our own wee worlds or in a bigger world. I think we have the ability to do that, and really grateful for having Cal and Kelly and Raylene support me in this kaupapa and this purpose to be able to share our stories. And thank you very much for the invites for us that we were able to present. So again, I really believe that if we utilise Indigenous and Māori solutions to global health, we'll be on the way to really making a huge difference. So thank you very much. Kia ora, Cal.
Ka pai, ki te whakakapi tēnei wānanga, tēnei kōrero, matua te tihi, matua te kaha, matua te aio, matua te mana, whiu atu, te hā kino, toki a te hā ora, ki roka, ki raro, ki waho, ki roto, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora.
Mauri ora.
Mauri ora.
Until next time.